Right, here we are. Waggle Duff Golf Show, RBC Heritage this week, fresh off the Masters, and we've got a really interesting week. A lot of fun, short course, Pete Dye design, really squeezes the field and allows others to come into play. And you can find some winners from 50, 60, 80, sometimes 100 to 1 plus in this event. It's a lot of fun to watch on TV, so let's get into this preview. Before I do, I just want to say thank you to everyone that played Waggle Duff last week, the Fantasy League element at waggleduff.com. We had over 164 teams, absolutely fantastic. If you do want to play Waggle Duff Fantasy Golf this week, you can head to waggleduff.com, you can submit your team of 5 on the submission form, or by tweeting a team to @WaggleDuff on Twitter. Your first pick is your captain, 2 picks must be 50 to 1 or greater, and you can get the odds list and the players all on the website. So if you are playing this week, good luck. But for the PGA Tour, the show must go on. And the RBC Heritage is another jacket that these guys can win. This time it's sort of tartan red. And it's the event where you see that the past champion is stood and they'll hit a tee shot with a cannon to signal the beginning of the competition. The RBC is traditionally played after the Masters week, and typically you do find winners. 12 of the last 16 winners were players that played in the Masters the week previous. Looking at some of those winners, last year's victor was Jordan Spieth, who defeated Patrick Cantley, who I suspect will be quite well tipped this week, in a playoff. Both of them went into the bunker. Jordan got up and down, Patrick plugged, and that was all she wrote. They finished on 13 under. Stuart Sink won the year before in 2021. He won his third RBC Heritage Championship at 19 under. Webb Simpson the year before, 22 under. Then you've got CT Pan, Satoshi Kodaira, both at 12 under. Wesley Bryant, Brendan Grace, Jim Furyk, and a guy I suspect will be quite well tipped this week, Matt Kuchar, 2014 in 11 under par. So using rickrungood.com, I'm going to give a little bit of a course breakdown and show you the kind of model that I've made to find some selections to win and some each way value. If you do want to use rickrungood.com, you can. There's some free tools on there, or there's a monthly annual subscription. It's a really cool tool, all the stats you could ever want about golf. So let me just share my screen and we'll get straight into that. So looking at Harbour Town golf links, well, it's not really a links course per se. There's 2 holes, 17 and 18, that run along the coast. The rest of it really has parkland type of vibes. It's very compact, it's very short. There's a lot of trees. There's actually 18 water hazards, but many don't come into play. The key for this week, really off the tee, is finding the right side of the hole, and that doesn't even correlate to being on the fairway. It's all about position off the tee rather than distance, which can allow you to strike good irons into what are some of the smallest greens on the PGA Tour, as we can see here, 3,700. Now the course is 7,191 yards, par 71. There's only 2 par 5s on the course, so again, for modelling, not too interested in par 5s. Pete Dye design, so correlating very well with players that do typically well at Pete Dye designs on these type of short courses. So I'm interested in Sea Island. I'm interested in TPC Sawgrass, Colonial, Wintersbrook, all those type of competitions and courses where we find players that do well that are, not necessarily the longest, plot their way around the course and play for position. Now, that doesn't mean somebody that plays long and hits it long can't do well. I mean, we saw Cam Smith, we saw Cameron Young was 3rd here last year. But typically, this kind of lends itself to a player that finds position. Looking at some of these key stats, I want to show you 3. Firstly, just to amplify that, strokes gained in approach, ranking 4th out of 50 correlated courses. So this is a second shot course. Iron play, particularly from on the left side here, 150 to 170 and 50 to 125, ranking 6th and 7th in importance. And really, and you can see that's from the rough. So you are going to miss a lot of fairways because it is so tight and narrow. It's just about mitigating that risk by missing on the right side. There's many holes where you'd rather be on the right side of the hole in the rough than on the wrong side and on the fairway. So players really that are pretty mustard with the irons off the fairway or in light rough, it's not really going to be too penalising, are going to be players that are going to perform well. And driving distance, really not important. Obviously, it's a benefit if you're hitting a 4-iron rather than a 5-wood or a 3-wood off the tee. That's obviously helpful, but really, players that are laser straight will be able to do well here. So really, when we're thinking about Harbour Town, we're looking at players that are very straight, very good with the irons, good around the greens, good touch, good with the short irons to wedges. And really, in terms of correlation, yeah, have played well at Innisbrook, have played well at Sea Island. Those type of courses, they will be a good match for picks this week. A couple of other quick nuggets here, really. 12 of the 16 previous winners have played in the Masters. That's players like McDowell, Kadira, for example. And because it's so short, we are kind of leveling the field to some extent. So lots of value to find in that 50 to 100 to 1 kind of bracket. I mean, it brings Kevin Kisner's into play. We saw it many times bring players like, it's not short, but Stuart Sink into play, who's done really well here. Webb Simpson done really well here. And a player that I'm sure will be well tipped, Matt Kuchar, as well. It's no surprise to see players like that are very good iron players, very straight, very consistent, performing well at Harbour Town. So at a first glance at the players that are here this week, the field is absolutely loaded. We've got 17 of the top 20 now here of the official World Golf Rankings. Unfortunately, Will Zalatoris had surgery on Saturday, so he's pulled out. McIlroy, due to fatigue, has pulled out. And interestingly, Jordan Spieth has come out in the press and said that he is exhausted, quote unquote. So yeah, maybe fading the last year's champion. Initially, when we think of players that play this type of courses well, short, very straight, consistent, there's two here at the top, Patrick Cantlay. So Cantlay will be well favoured, came so close here last year, finishing second, but also has a third and a seventh here in 2019 and 2018. And there's a strong correlation between players that play well historically to do well on the week. So interested in Patrick Cantlay. And just below him, no surprise to see Morikawa as a really good fit for this course. Again, not one of the longest, doesn't really gain a great deal off the tee, but look at that in approach, absolutely mustard, 0.92. So yeah, one of the best iron players on tour. Despite having a really cold putter of late, actually these greens are quite small, so a little bit of a leveler in that extent. So if he's on the green, he's going to have opportunities, and no one's going to find statistically as many greens as Colin Morikawa is this week. Also, sneakily came 10th last week, which I quite like. I mean, a little bit under the radar, I would say, for Morikawa, but a good finish. And has got a 7th here in 2021. So knows his way around. And I'm sure he's licking his lips at this course because, again, it plays directly into his strengths. Scrolling down, we're kind of finding some players here that are in form, well tipped, well liked, and could well have a run. I'm going to fade Tyrrell Hatton purely because, as we know from this course, you need to move the ball a lot left to right, right to left. It suits players that do shape the ball off the tee, and Tyrrell is the straightest hitter on tour, arrow straight with everything. So I'm going to fade him. But players that are coming through at the moment, Shane Lowry looked really good at the Masters. Him and Justin Rose, another player I'm interested in, will certainly see this as a good opportunity for them. Again, Shane Lowry, another player that ticks the boxes in a sense of not doing a great deal off the tee, but really good with the approach. Tee to green, absolutely solid. You know, if we can just get that putter working this week, and saw glimpses of it, didn't we, at Augusta, then certainly he can do well. Oh, and by the way, fantastic course history here. Third in 2022, ninth in 2021, missed a cut in 2020, no sweat, third the year before in 2019. So comes here with really good expectations, really good course history knowledge, and the 16th at the Masters last week. So fits that mold of somebody that's coming through. Didn't have all the media attention, probably a little bit more rested than those that were in contention. So Shane is certainly a player I'll be looking at as well. And finally, in this bracket here, Tommy Fleetwood, another player that if you've watched him on the DP World Tour, you'll know how much his driver can frustrate you. And it's no surprise to see the off the tee strokes gain data pretty weak. But okay in approach, good touch around the green. He'll have lots of opportunity to do that, hit irons and chip shots this week. I mean, no greens in reg were hit as little as often as Harbour Town last year because really they're really small greens. So you're going to be on the fringes, the edges, trying to get up and down quite often. But we do see a lot of chip ins in the end. It's normally Jordan Spieth. Tommy's a little bit of form here. Yeah, third at the Valspar, which I'm really pleased with. I know PGA Tour has never really hit the heights that we were hoping as a European, particularly with that, you know, unreal purple patch over in Europe on the DP World Tour. But again, 10th last year, so comes in with some really good vibes, really good experiences. So yeah, Tommy, Justin Rose, Shane Lowry, and these are the type of players that I'm interested in this week from that extent, because actually there's value to be found. As I said, it doesn't mean that somebody like a Rahm can't just come here and dominate. It doesn't mean Scotty Scheffler won't. It certainly doesn't mean bomber Cam Young, who came third last year, can't just, you know, blow the course away, because he can. But if there is a week to find some value down in the 50s, 60s, 100s to 1, yeah, really interested to have a look at some of these guys. And we're going to explore two players in my custom model now. So if we just load my model from this week, RBC Heritage, last week, really interesting. I actually mirrored the board in a sense of betting. I had, which meant I've put the right plugins in that mirrors that, but unfortunately no kind of no hidden gems that came to the top. But having a look here, okay, so Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Scotty Scheffler. John Rahm down in sixth against my model, which may be a calibration issue on my front. I expected him to be, no, I expected him to be number one, to be honest. But yeah, Spieth, Thomas, Scheffler, Morikawa, who is going to be my first pick this week, and we'll talk about Morikawa in a moment. Patrick Cantley up there again as well. That's really good to see. I expect him to be very well fancied. And then I've touched on some players already. And yeah, Justin Rose and Tommy Fleetwood coming through the field into the top 15 in my model, which is good. It means that the players that I'm kind of interested in initially from experience and that little bit of history of doing this a while, yeah, from a modeling perspective, are showing in the data as well. So really interesting. If you want to grab this model, you can. I'll put the weighting in the description of this YouTube video. But let's just scroll across and have a look at Colin Morikawa. So Morikawa is doing some really cool things with the irons as ever, right? So strokes gained and approach almost a shot. He's ranking fourth out of the field here so far. And there was one more element as well. From 100 to 125 yards, he's the third best player. So if he turns up with that very reliable long game that we tend to see, he's going to have a lot of opportunities. Obviously, strokes gained putting on this type of grass this week, yeah, quite weak. But I'm hoping, compared to the field, he'll have more opportunities. So even if he doesn't putt the lights out, he'll still be in contention. No surprise to see Patrick Cantley here up here as well. Yeah, really good course history. If we go to straight gains at Harbour Town, Patrick Cantley third here. So really good experience. Also third at straight gains courses in general. He's just a really good match. So yeah, Morikawa and Cantley are two players I'm certainly going to be looking at this week. I will be picking from the pool of Rose, Lowry, and Fleetwood. And then there's one last player, if I just scroll down, that I found at 300 to 1 that I just want to talk about in a little bit more detail, because he actually does score well above that in the model. And he's also got some really good course experience and recent history, which maybe is flagged a little under the radar. So let's look at Tyler Duncan. Now, you're going to find him at about 300 to 1 in some places. So there's a reason for that. So let's scroll across and we can find some areas of red weakness already. Okay. Not the best chipper, you know, loses half a shot on the field around the greens. Okay. Massive flag. But what jumped out when I was playing with the model was straight gains total, 24th in the field. So yeah, putting it all together into a scorecard, pretty solid. He's also pretty solid on the par fours, ranking 20th in the field, which is obviously quite key. We've got lots of par fours and par threes this week. Really not interested in par five scoring. And then also, yeah, pretty solid from that 125 to 150 yards. So I quite liked him. Now, there's some red flags here, massive red flags, right? So, you know, and at 300 to 1, you would expect that. But if we just flick back to the cheat sheet and put the players in strokes gained total, we'll find, with a little bit of luck, Tyler Duncan a little bit further up the field. Here he is. So having a little look at Tyler Duncan here, okay, weaker field, and this is certainly more of going to be an elevated field, but third at the Corrales, third at the Honda, was 12th here last year and 28th in 2020. So putting that together, some good course history, which ticks the boxes, playing well, hitting the scores that you need to compete, right? Okay, going to be a more challenging field, but is doing that. But when it came to just strokes gained total, I thought at 300 to 1, that's pretty good value. You can find him at 8 places, but what I'm going to certainly do is wait for that top 40 market, and I think we're going to find some real value from Tyler Duncan. So really interesting player, like right in the 300s to 1, and yeah, there's a reason for that. But in terms of finding some value in somebody that was popping up on the model, it seemed like a good opportunity to go for the long shot. So to summarise this week, I'll be back in Colin Morikawa, I will be back in Patrick Cantley, Shane Lowry and Tyler Duncan. I also will be tweeting a little bit closer to the time my top 40s, and follow at Waggle Duff on Twitter because I'll be placing my matchups on there on the weekend. If you are having a bet or putting a Waggle Duff team in this week, best of luck, please gamble responsibly, and I'll see you next.